Welcome to the 25th episode of the Nerdom and Other Nonsense Anime Podcast. Today we're going over the summer 2017 season's 7th week of shows and also debating whether or not to cut any of our current shows. My name is Leo, and if this podcast doesn't start by 5 o'clock p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, I will cut every goddamn show on this list. Also with me is Bcom.
Oh, I've got bad news for you, Leo. It's 5:18.
Oh, God. Well, my problem with this was I'd messaged you, nothing. Did my final review, nothing. Had just turned off my computer, got up, sat in my big comfy chair, turned on Xbox, opened the YouTube app, and I literally was clicking the first episode I was going to watch because I want to check out this Destiny 2 shit that's coming out today. There's all kinds of Destiny news right now because of Gamescom, and my phone is going off at the same time. So I start the episode, pick up my phone, and you're like, hey, are you ready? I am. I'm just like, fuck you. Not to mention, I've gotten out of my computer chair, which Chio loves. I've turned off the computer. She sits in it. It's nice and warm, and she's literally mean mugging me like, you turned off the computer. You were done. And now I've kicked her out, and she's pouting on the back of the recliner. So,
well, in my defense, I was making a sandwich.
For how long? An hour?
For like 20 minutes. It was a very in-depth sandwich.
Oh, God.
It was good. Had hummus and tomatoes on it. Freshly grown tomatoes.
Oh, disgusting tomatoes.
From a friend. Oh, they were pretty good, actually. I love tomatoes, though. So, all right, should we get into this?
Yeah, go for it. Sundays.
So, first, before we start with Sundays, just like, yeah, there is a chance that we could cut, like, any given show this week. We didn't cut anything last season, so we'll see if we do anything
Have we made any
time.
cuts?
Well, back when we used to do, like, 27 shows, we cut, like, everything.
Yeah, okay, let me clarify my question. Since we've started our 10 episodes... Have we cut anything?
No, not yet, because we're really smart and we know what we like.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, some shows have gone downhill since we started watching this.
Nothing mid-season, but we cut shows between each season, though.
Oh yeah, that's true. And I kind of cut My Hero Academia technically, like, and Recreators. Yeah. At the end of last season, so that's technically a cut.
Season cuts, but not mid-season cuts.
Yeah. All right. So let's get into it with Sundays. First show on the docket is Centaur no Naomi, or Centaur's Life. And our favorite part of the show is when we get to read the title of the episode. So for episode 7, it's First Experiences Are Scary and Fun All in One. Pardon the rhyme. / occult movies you watch as a kid are 140% scarier. All right. Okay, this fucking episode. So...
I'm laughing because I already know.
Yeah, this episode starts off with a cute scene where Tama's little sisters, like the little cat girls, meet Sasasul for the first time. And they, like, can't pronounce her full name. They're like, Ketsuke, and then they just call her, like, Su-chan eventually. And it's kind of cute. They, like, playfully start, like, climbing all over her. They ask her to open her mouth, and then, like, when she does, it's scary, so they, like, run behind their sister and hide behind her. But then they ask her to do it again, and, like,
it's adorable.
They just keep playing with her. It's really cool.
It's
really
a great scene. It's a great scene.
It is a good scene.
It's a great scene for now.
It started off so well, yeah. And then this episode decided to go to the pool. Okay, so... cue up a very long scene of various monster girls, not just the main cast, like, getting into their bathing suits and, like, snapping them around their butts and, like, you know, just, like, kind of, like, vague fan service.
Yeah, and at this point, I'm like, it's an anime. It was inevitable. Whatever. Let's just move on.
Yeah, and this show has done fan service before.
Yeah.
However,
oh, God.
There was one lingering question out there for many viewers, and that was, how does a centaur put on their pants? Because, like, do they do it from the front? Do they do it from the back? Do they do it all at once? I don't know. Do they do it from the top?
Who knows?
But the show decided to answer that question not with the, like, actually sort of age centaur, like the main character Hime, but instead with her little Loli centaur cousin Shino, in a scene that literally went on forever. And by forever, I mean 32 seconds of her shirtless because she's a centaur. She has like a human like front body. Also, they did not animate her nipples, which is to me an admission of guilt.
Yeah, because like it's just her front body, and as a comparison, Hime is right next to her with her giant boobs, so we know she has them.
Yeah, they're not animated because they don't want to sexualize the kid, but they spend 32 seconds on a scene of her putting the pants on, which is a swimsuit she's putting on, one leg at a time, as she makes Loli cooing noises like, putting on pants. Why are you making these noises? There's no reason to be making these noises. And I'm just like, sitting here, and
it even goes all the way as far as her putting on the top. She puts on the entire swimsuit starting off naked. It's horrendous.
It literally lasts 32 seconds, this one shot of her putting on her swimsuit, and it's like so disgusting. Lolicon fan service. Oh my god.
And I'm notorious for writing short notes for each episode, so Bcom hates me for it, but...
No, it's okay. Your notes were perfect for this episode.
But this one, like, once I wrote these notes, I kind of checked out of the rest of the episode because I couldn't believe it. But I was like, okay, I'm glad we addressed how centaurs put on pants, but that scene was unnecessary. Like, really unnecessary. There's, like, fucking lolicons just jizzed all over themselves during that scene. It was bad. It was that bad. I was at work watching this, and like there's motion sensing lights around me, and they're all dark, and I'm still glancing around my shoulder because I'm like, I cannot risk anybody seeing what this fucking garbage I'm watching right now. And I'm so sorry, I am, but I can't help it. I have a podcast.
Oh, yeah, that scene was way over the top. Let's move on from there, though. So... Nozomi is surprised that Sasasul doesn't have breasts because, you know, she's a snake person, and Sue explains that, you know, I don't need to nurse my young. And by the way, Nozomi and Kyoko, I can say the exact same thing about you. Yay, breast jokes. We're reaching like a territory that hasn't been explored in anime before. Woo! So,
see, there's just another thing I wasn't surprised about. I'm like, yeah, that was bound to happen.
So it turns out Sasasul is afraid of the water, though, because if you're in Antarctica and you fall like beneath the ice, it basically means instant death because of the temperatures. But like to get her over it, like Tama's cat triplet sisters just pull Sue-chan into the pool against her will, and she just gets over it because she's like, oh, I'm not dead, so I guess I can swim now. Meanwhile, Tama's youngest sister, Sue, is literally just walking around the pool saying the word meow. That's literally all she's saying. It's just like meow. And then so like Shino comes up to her and grabs her and just like rubs her face on her like she did with Hime the first time we saw her. Just more like cuteness fan service, which is just like, okay, whatever. Half of the girls go swim to like at this the racing diving pool. Then they leave Tama and her sisters behind, and Sasasul. The sisters get jealous because they want to go to the big girl pool, but they can't because Tama won't let them. So Hime, it turns out, is afraid of going into the deep end of the diving pool because even though she can swim, if anything were to go wrong, no one would be able to lift her out of the pool and she would just drown. So like it's pretty dangerous for her to even be close to that part of the pool.
Yeah, I mean, they went in the first place because she could touch the bottom and couldn't actually swim. So she wanted to swim, so that's why they went to the bigger pool.
It was funny the way Shino swam, or like that they told her to swim, was like to stick her front hooves like way out in front, like diagonal, so they don't touch the bottom, and just like paddle with her back legs. I don't know if that's like how horses actually swim. I don't know.
I would assume it's just like the doggy paddle.
Yeah, kind of like that.
That would make more sense to me, but I don't know.
Yeah. So there's a mermaid swimming in the like big girl pool, and like Nozomi and Kyoko are wondering like, how does she get out of the pool? Like she can't climb on a ladder or something, can she? Wait, but hold on. Do the mermaids in this show have arms? They do, right?
Yes, they have arms. They only have a mermaid bottom. So
like she could totally just pull herself up by her arms, right? And like then just like hop out of the pool like with one last like jump.
I mean,
but like the way this show solves the problem is that like the mermaid swims really fast and just like leaps up out of the water directly into like a sitting position on the side of the pool, and that's how she gets out.
I mean, I think that makes more sense. I mean, otherwise it's you need a lot of upper body strength. Yeah,
I guess so. I guess that's true. I feel like mermaids would have developed that though to like live in the real world, like outside of the water. They would need that upper body
strong
strength.
Fins. It seems way more advantageous just to leap out of the water.
Yeah, it's also pretty cool, and it also allows for a lot of huge breast fan service in the shots where she's jumping out of the water. Boob jiggles galore. So yeah, Tama's sisters, like I said, were jealous that the other girls went to the deep pool. So when Shino comes back, they're like being mean to her, but Tama just whispers to her to break the tension by like starting a splash fight. So now there's a splash fight, and the little girls are like jumping at each other in slow motion for more fan service. It's fantastic. And then so everybody's exhausted, so they go, I think they drink like hot cocoa to warm up, which sounds like a really cool thing to do after going to the pool that I never did. I remember when I went to the pool. I don't know
about hot cocoa. Usually after the pool, I'm hot.
Yeah, when I went to the pool in the summer, I would go over to like the snack bar and get like a grilled cheese sandwich, and that was delicious. So good.
Well, I mean, the food's different, but like, I think my thing would be like ice cream or something afterwards.
I would definitely like soda. Like, yeah, I wouldn't want anything hot, but they were like, yeah, our bodies cooled down, so we need hot drinks. And I was like, okay.
What,
interesting.
Are you swimming in December or what? Jesus.
I don't know. So Shino is like falling asleep, and like Hime is holding her, and Tama's sisters get really jealous that like she gets to be carried, and they want Tama to carry her, but she's like, hey, you've only got one big sister. And they're like, why is that? That's so unfair. Why do we only have one big sister? And then Nozomi and like Sasasul step in, and they pick up the other two like little kitten girls. And I think Kyoko picks one up too, and so they all get carried to the car or wherever.
I think all the way back home.
Oh yeah, yeah, I think so. We also learn, they just like walk home. So we also learned that Sasasul considers pretty much all of the girls she grew up to be sisters, because they were all born from the same like queen snake. So like she doesn't have like the same concept of like family and sisters as we've been learning, but basically there's one little girl that she took care of as she was growing up, and that is to her like the same thing as a little sister.
Makes sense.
So that's the whole first part of the episode. The second part of the episode I really did not like at all. It's just a guy like convinces the girls to help him hit on this one girl in the class. It's like an angel folk girl named Towako. And he wants to do this by getting them all together at school at night and telling scary stories. And none of the stories were actually that scary, nor were they told very well. Like, honestly, for me, like Shougen Roku Rakugo Shinju like has set the bar for like storytelling in anime, especially like scary stories.
Specifically about that. So God, that's a harsh comparison, dude.
It is a very harsh comparison, but I was just like, the first thing that came to mind, I was like, those stories would always like get me in, and these stories were just like, okay, that happened, I guess. But like one of the things is like they use like scary music to try to like convince us to be scared, or convince us that the girls in the show would be scared.
Yeah, I honestly did not expect it to be scary in the least. I just expected it to somehow further the plot inside this story, which is kind of what it did. So I didn't think too much on it.
Yeah, and like Su-chan like discusses like her superstition of like she used to walk on the cracks of the like flagstones in her sidewalks back home because she was afraid that one would fall through the ground and she would just fall through into the sewers and die or something. I don't know. It was just, there was really no point to this segment. Also, one of my problems with this segment is that like Towako, I feel like we've seen her before at some point, but I didn't remember who she was because like there's been no focus on her.
She was probably just like a background character or something like that, I would assume.
Yeah.
No, but I get what you're talking about. I thought the same thing. I was like, what? She seems kind of familiar, but I absolutely cannot place her.
It seemed like something that would have made more sense in the manga, because like you would have had more context building up to it maybe, but here it kind of felt like out of the blue a little bit. So that's why, I don't know. It just felt like kind of a little bit of a filler segment, in my opinion. But that's it. So yeah, that was egregious fan service. That one scene was really over the top. Oh man, I mean, I like certain aspects of this show a lot. Like, it's just so weird and it's kind of really fun. And I like little triplet cat girls. They're really cute. But just don't lewd the lolis. Don't lewd the Centaur loli, is what I say.
Dude, I'm just now thinking how great it would have been if like you were streaming your live reactions on this episode, and like when you got to that scene, just to see your face of like horror, just like, what is this show doing?
I can tell you, all I would have been saying, it's like, it's still going, it's still going, it's still going. That's what I would have been saying.
That's why when I was at work and I was looking over my shoulder, I'm like, how many times do I have to keep looking over my shoulder? It's not done. End already.
Oh man. Well,
you got
let's
anything
move on
else
from that. No, I'm done with that one.
All right. Okay, let's do Princess Principal episode 7, Loudly Laundry.
Very appropriate title.
Yeah. And it's funny because you saw one aspect of it. I saw a different aspect from it. Mm-hmm. Probably because I work in a factory, so I was looking at different things.
Oh,
because
interesting.
It's basically what it was. So yeah, this will be fun. So it seems the girls are now infiltrating a laundry mill under disguise. They're supposed to be... but what's really funny about this whole thing is that Ange is acting like she's a former delinquent who is trying to change her ways since her mother fell ill. And it's just this hilarious scene. Like, the other girls are taken by surprise. They're like, what are you doing? I don't understand.
And her like delinquent facial expressions are drawn really well. Like they look good. She makes some really good faces in this episode.
No, yeah, it's pretty fantastic. But anyways, the reason they're undercover is because of attacks from a man going by the name Poison Gas Jack, who is assassinating wealthy people who are in support of the Commonwealth. The only thing they've gathered so far is the culprit seems to be working on his own, and he's using nerve gas that was outlawed by the Geneva Convention. But the only way he should be able to get the ingredients to make nerve gas, or nerve gas itself, is he has to be part of the military. That's the only way he can get a part of this. So that's why they're infiltrating this laundry, because nerve gas will also adhere to a person's clothing. And they have a special spray that they spray on the military clothing. They can see if there's nerve gas on it, and then all to do is look at the name tag, sewn on the inside to figure it out. But they're there at the factory and they're working, and this place is a fucking disaster. There's hoses running everywhere. There's like water pipes bursting. There's something is breaking down every 20 minutes.
There's the girl eating those like fucking potato things on top of a machine, and they fall into the machine.
Yeah, and like it like causes it to like bind up. It's just crazy. But this is kind of cool. It's kind of neat what they did with this. So Chise is like getting kind of annoyed that the women don't work very hard and barely even work an hour before going on breaks all the time. It makes her kind of cross with the head laundry lady who kind of says when they are going to go on the breaks. But the thing is that all the equipment they're using keeps breaking down. And when the equipment breaks down and it's not working properly and it's faulty, people get injured. From real life experiences, this is very true. Mm-hmm. So giving the machines breaks is actually what the head laundry lady is doing, because it decreases the rate of injuries when the machines break down. So letting them sit for a minute and cool down and everybody, regather their heads, the injury rate goes down.
Yep.
So, and Chise kind of sees this and she's like, okay, kind of makes sense. But then Douchey McDouchey of Douchiest Gangsters from a previous episode.
I think his actual name is Frankie, but his real name should be that.
It should be. Dude, as soon as I heard his voice, I was like, God, this guy again. So he shows up expecting money from the foreman. The princess interrupts their conversation and proclaims she is going to buy the factory and she'll even pay off the debt owed. So that night, the girls decide to go in, fix all the machinery, and rearrange the machines so it has a really good workflow, which workflow is a big deal when you're working in machining, because like one part comes off this machine, and then it goes to this other machine, and then it goes to a matching station, and then goes to a pack out station. And if you're doing a figure 8, it's fucking stupid. So you really want it in a straight line, which is basically what they did. And they got the hoses out of the way, so it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, in this show, like in the beginning of the episode, there was that one poor girl who had to keep running past like all the machines and over like all of these hoses, and she kept tripping over herself. And it was just ridiculous. There was no reason to have that. It was insane.
Yeah. So the next day, and everybody shows up to work, and they're like, what the heck? And like this increased, and I can believe it because it was a disaster beforehand. They do an entire week's worth of laundry before the day is even over.
Yeah.
And like I said, it sounds insane, but that laundry facility was an absolute piece of shit. Once they, Beatrice pulled her weight this episode. She knows she's kind of the mechanic of the group. She fixed all the machines. To be fair,
she's very light.
Yeah.
So you didn't have a lot of weight
all the machines. The machines are running more efficient. They're running more faster. They're not breaking down at all. They're like, somebody makes a comment at one point, the belts aren't even squeaking. It's since it's streamlined, they're going from one machine to the next instantly. And everybody's loving it. And like even Chisei starts up like this sing song thing while they're working, whatever. She says something from her homeland. So
she said it was like a Japanese laundry factory technique kind of thing.
Yeah. But since they basically got an entire week's work done in one day, they decided to like pick up more work from more people than the army. Like they go out to the site and they pretty up some of the girls and they're like, hey, we'll do your laundry. And they're like, okay. And they start taking off their shirts and throwing at them.
I loved how they just stripped and threw their dirty clothes at the girls. It was so funny.
It was pretty funny. But the girls finally later on get a chemical reaction on one of the uniforms. And the reason the uniform took forever to show up till now was because the guy always hand washed his own uniforms, but he was out. So when the girls came to pick up the laundry, one of the other soldiers just threw his laundry in with the other guys, and he's like, shit. And like he's like, I guess he was onto them, or he knew that he could be found out this way. So he makes his way to the laundry facility, and by this point, Princess has found his and gotten the reaction, and they know who it is now. And he goes in to fucking stab her in the back of the head, but then Chisei shows up and kicks his ass with an iron. It's pretty good. The episode kind of ends. The girls are going to leave the laundry and everything because obviously, they have other spy stuff they need to focus on. But before they leave, they make the head laundry lady the foreman. So that was really cool.
Yeah, that was very cute. She didn't want to take it at first, and then the other girls were like, "Oh, well, I'll take it then, and then it'll give us 3 times as many lunch breaks." And she's like, "All right, I'll do it."
I'll say, head laundry lady's kind of cute, but I really love the hair of the one eye thing. So it
was funny when Chisei gave her a headband or hachimaki to wear, and like I thought she was gonna like brush her hair out of her eye, but even when she wore the headband, her hair was still over her eye. I was like, that's funny. They just left her character designed that way.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was more about the sweat. So
yeah. So I like this episode a lot, even though like it was a little bit kind of maybe fillery because I don't know, it doesn't really drive the main plot forward. Whatever. Okay,
that was my only complaint about this episode was I'm like, how does this go with the main story at all? It like if it had, then they would have finished the episode with us saying, all right, now we have this advantage in this area against the other opponents, but it doesn't do that at all. Mm-hmm. It just. Like you said, it's just almost it's a great episode, but like it doesn't add to the overall story really in the least.
Yeah.
Nobody got a backstory. We got to know Chisei a little bit better.
Yeah, the little bit more on Chisei, and she was very like embarrassed when she had to like knock that guy out in front of the foreman girl who had been like looking up to her and stuff. So but like that didn't really go anywhere. Like they didn't really talk about it or anything. So I noted a couple things. The laundry company was called Little Lamb's Laundry, which might as well be code for Loli Laundry.
I don't agree with you.
I mean, come on, Little Lambs. Come on, whatever. I mean, like, yeah, it's not that like ridiculous of a name, but it was a lot of little girls doing laundry, which made me think about how this episode was like talking about child labor and how I
don't feel like it really talked about it. It was just more or less expressing the time period this is set in.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, child labor was like a matter of fact in like the early 1900s, late 1800s in factories. So it's legitimate. And working conditions were really bad too. So it was interesting that it focused on that. I just felt that like even once all the working conditions were good and nice, it was still child labor. So it's kind of shitty. But like, I don't know. If you don't think about that, then it's still like a really fun episode. It was a feel-good episode in a lot of ways besides that.
I think it's just being true to the time period. Though they did fix everything, was more for the story to move forward. Fixing the child labor would have done nothing for the story.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think that's why they didn't fix it. And even to them, probably at that time, it really wasn't a big deal. But maybe, making the factory more streamlined would have been a big deal, obviously.
Yeah, and let's be honest.
Especially since she bought it.
Yeah, that was kind of interesting. Let's be honest, these girls are child spies, basically. So it's like they're not going to worry about child launderers, like who are in way less trouble. So
except for Dorothy.
Yeah, except for Dorothy, who's 20 years old, apparently. So, yeah. All right, that's all I've got to say about Princess Principal.
Yep,
you want to move on?
Let's go.
All right. So on Tuesdays, we've got Restaurant to Another World. Moving on to episode 7, which is called Curry Rice / Chicken Curry.
I will say this is the correct episode also.
Yeah, this is also the correct episode. I double checked. Episode 8 was out when I went to watch this, so I was very careful. In the first part of this episode, we meet a man named Admiral Alphonse Flugel. 20 years prior, his fleet was attacked by a kraken, and he was able to save like every ship except for his own. And so he survived for 20 years on a deserted island. And he was like fighting off like these wolves that had like unicorn horns and like eating their meat for sustenance. And he's kind of a badass. He had marked up the cave where he was staying to count the days, and he always marked them up in groups of 7 days. And of course, the reason for that is because the restaurant Nekio would appear magically on the island on the 7th day.
Well, I mean, other than that, obviously, it's because it might be a week. It's just whatever you want to mark it by.
Yeah. When he was rescued, he was like very reluctant to leave the island because he wasn't sure if he could ever find an entrance again. But he remembered that when he would eat at the restaurant, like a knight of the duchy, which is the blonde knight guy who we've met in an earlier episode, was among the people that would eat there every Saturday. So he decides to try and find him again once he goes home. So once he gets home, like 3 months pass, and then he finds like the same entrance from like a cabin in the middle of the nowhere that knight had found in the previous episode when he was trying to deliver a message. He was on the way. He found this, I think. So it turns out his favorite dish is curry rice, because every Japanese food show has to have an episode about curry rice, because oh my god.
Did you have that when you went to Japan?
Actually, it's one of the few things I didn't eat there, but I do eat like instant curry rice every once in a while here, which is really fucking good actually. It's really easy to make. Because it's like literally instant. I've actually made it non-instantly too. It didn't come out as good. It was okay, but I don't know the secrets. I don't know the secrets to making a good curry.
You're not
rice.
Japanese. You don't know the secrets.
Post recipes in the comments if you know the secrets. So he's literally come to this restaurant like 1,000 times over the past 20 years, and he has never ordered anything but curry rice, as far as I can tell. And that's kind of insane to me. Like, I can't imagine going to the same restaurant.
Doesn't this apply to everybody in the show?
Yeah, that's one of my problems with the show. It's just like, and nobody wants to try a different dish. It's just like, who are these people? It's like they try one thing, they're like, oh, this is the best thing that I've ever tasted, so I can't possibly mix it up. Like, no, this is a great restaurant. He makes tons of great dishes. But
yeah, especially with how broad his menu is. I mean, come on.
Yeah, so the new chef asks him if he wants to try like a new curry rice dish. And that's the end of the first half of the episode, when he's like, a new dish, really? So in the second half, we're introduced to a group of 7 dragons. And it turns out one of them we've met already before is the red dragon from like the first episode. She's the
Which you
red
don't find
dragon.
out till later. But I thought this kind of backstory was kind of neat.
Yeah. So they are all different colors, kind of like Power Rangers, basically. And the one that we're hearing the narration from is the black dragon. And so basically all these dragons at one point like teamed up to try and destroy this Cthulhu-like monster called the Chaos of the Many Tentacles. And so they battled this monster for 1,000 years.
When they called it the Many Tentacles.
The Many Oh no. Oh no.
I did, really. I was like, oh no, don't go there.
So they finally defeat it after like a 1,000-year battle. And after defeating the tentacle monster, our narrator, the Black Dragon, discovers that even the magic that emanates from her, like just her magic is like death magic, basically. So even if she's not actively trying to use her magic, the little bit that emanates from her started to kill any of like the life forms that were on the planet that she used to inhabit. After the Chaos of the Many Tentacles was defeated, I guess it provided some protection for the creatures that live down there. So if she even flies over like the forest, like all of these like little elf people just start dying. So she decided to like basically exile herself to the moon, and the other dragons all took up various territories on the planet. So that's kind of shitty for her because she's all isolated. But the one lucky thing is every 7 days, a door to the restaurant Nekia appears.
I want to say, didn't a meteorite land?
It looks like part of the moon was like blown off for sure.
I want to say like a meteorite landed one day after she's been up there for like a long time, and then the door just happened to be on it or something like that.
Oh, it might have been that. Yeah, I think
so.
Yeah. We go back to the restaurant and back to Alphonse, the first guy. And so he is trying out the new curry dish, which turns out to be a chicken curry over rice. So they have the curry like separated into this little carafe that can be poured over just a plain dish of rice. So he tries the curry on its own first, and it's like way too spicy for him. But somehow when it's poured over the rice, it mellows the spiciness. And like, I guess this kind of happens in real life, like, and brings out a little bit of extra flavor. I never really think about it because I usually don't eat like the curry separate from the rice too often. But I guess it does mellow it a little bit. It's still pretty spicy. If it starts off spicy, it's still going to be spicy though. But as Alphonse is asking for another dish, because of course he loves it, a naked girl with black hair just randomly shows up in the front of the restaurant and asks if she can have a dish too. And like Aletta like rushes over to her and covers like her top with like a menu and her bottom with her hand and stuff. And the chef asks her like, could you please put some clothes on? And she doesn't really understand the concept of clothes. It's very clear already at this point that she is the Black Dragon who has transformed into a human form as to enter the door. So she uses magic to cover herself in like a black gothic dress. And the other thing we can see is that she is the girl who we've been seeing in like the OP and the ED for many episodes now and just waiting to show up. So the pork cutlet guy, who's also in the restaurant, like the guy with like the long white hair, recognizes the girl as one of those dragons and thinks to himself that all I can do is just sit and watch and see how this plays out. I guess he's kind of worried about her. Because she's the dragon of death, I guess. So in a shocking turn of events, she likes the chicken curry. And at this point, I keep hoping to be surprised at some point that like a dish that they try won't be tasty to someone's palate. Like, she's a dragon of death. Maybe she would have a different taste palette than enjoying chicken curry, but I guess not. So Alphonse tries to keep up with the girl and get in an informal competition to see who can eat the most chicken curry dishes. Like, he offers to pay for her because he realizes that she doesn't have any money, but it's like a sense of honor that like he loves the chicken curry and he wants to be able to like out eat her. But also, like, he gave them like a bag of coins 20 years ago when he first started coming, and it still hasn't run out, so it must have been a big damn bag. Eventually Alphonse taps out though, because this dragon girl just can eat for days. She literally just keeps eating for hours and hours, plate after plate after plate. The show literally starts fast forwarding and shows like the clock spinning around. And eventually, once it stops, the red dragon, who we've seen before,
oh yeah,
Leo's favorite character, she shows up and she spots the black dragon, who she calls Kuro, and they speak like telepathically to each other. And so Red asks the black dragon like what the tastiest dish in this restaurant is, and Kuro tells her it's chicken curry. And then Red tells her she's gonna need money if she wants to like eat all of these dishes. And Red tells her it's like, this is part of my territory, so I won't allow any tomfoolery like dining and dashing. So basically, Red asked the chef, like, can Kuro come on as a worker here? And he says it's fine. And then Aletta starts freaking out, though, because she's like, wait, am I not good enough? Am I going to be fired?
It's cute.
It was kind of cute. So, but it also serves to remind me that Aletta is still living on the streets back home. So I feel so bad for her, like, all the time. Like, I don't know.
I don't know. They had a recent update an episode or two ago where she was talking about getting work here and there, but not like a full-time job.
Oh, that's true. I kind of glossed over that. So she is doing a little bit better. And I think I saw in the preview for the next episode that it might focus a little bit more on how far she's come. So that'll be cool.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. Did you have any thoughts on this episode? It was pretty straightforward.
Yeah, it's very straightforward. I just really liked the dragon story and how it mingled with the red dragons. And then they did another crossover with the first guy.
Yeah.
And the other guy now sharing basically the same door. I thought it was neat. Just really cool stuff.
Yeah, it's cool that like some people do come from like the same universe to this place, so they can cross over a little bit. I like that.
Yeah. But if we are done with that, we can move on to Wednesdays with Sakura Quest. Episode 20, The Phoenix and the Holy Knight. What a fantastic episode.
It is really good. Yeah.
Yes.
It continues, like Sakura Quest is on a groove right now, I feel like. They've hit their groove.
They are right now on the course to finish their season with a home run. Really.
Pretty much.
So the show immediately pulls a fast one on you, letting you think Maki passed the audition by having her name called in the group of girls that are at the audition. Mm-hmm. You would think that because the girls that have passed are like, woo, yay, and stuff like that. And it's bad because then the director's like, all right, everybody's name who I've called, you may leave. So it was just like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I saw that coming, but I was still like a little upset.
I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't at all because I totally got tricked by the first girl's name who got called, and she was like all happy and did like a fist pump or something like that. And I was like, oh shit. And like each of the ones after that were like really happy. So
yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So it got me. But like all the characters are shocked, but like even Moe was there. And she chases after Maki because she's concerned. But Maki seems to be okay right now after getting over the initial shock. But then like on the train ride home, she does tear up a little bit though. So
that was really well animated too. Like her lips start to quiver and then her whole face starts to like quiver and she tears up. That was tough to watch actually. Because it was so well animated in her face.
With the train background going by. Yeah, it was pretty good. So the girls are having a hot lunch event in the old school and absolutely nobody shows up. And then Yoshino, this is just like self-awareness joke. Yoshino remarks, she hasn't felt this way in a while, referring to how when the series first started. So that's really great. But Maki does show up and tells them she didn't pass, and that's the end of her acting career. She's going to focus on being, what do they call her? The
handy woman or something?
Yeah, the handy woman or whatever. Yeah. The girls think the reason nobody showed up was because the school never had an official closing ceremony where the last year's graduates get together and make an event out of it. So their idea is to actually host a closing ceremony and invite any graduate, just not the last year's, to come and celebrate. They're going to also try to do their best to make it a very big event and stuff. The girls end up at Angelica's and like everybody's bummed about something, and mostly it's the weather. It's like currently snowing and stuff. I'm not bummed when it snows. I fucking love the snow.
I do too, actually.
Yeah.
I love driving in the snow too. It's fucking fun.
That's in my notes. I said I love watching it. I love going out in it. I love driving in it. And I know a lot of our listeners probably have horrified expressions on their faces. But like, I love driving in the snow.
I have like a front wheel drive car, and like so it's not even great for driving in the snow. And I'll start like sliding around the roads.
No way.
Like, oh, this is fun.
No, front wheel is great for driving in the snow.
Well, it's better than rear wheel, but it's not as good as like actual because you're 4-wheel all-wheel drive.
Most of the weight of your car is on your front wheels, but so mine's a front wheel drive, but I can also turn over to all-wheel drive, and I've had it for 2 years now. we haven't had enough snow that I could play within the all-wheel drive yet. It's driving me fucking insane. Do you ever do reverse donuts in a front-wheel drive car?
No, I've never done that. That sounds fun, though.
Yeah, because, I mean, you can't do donuts in a front-wheel drive car unless you're going reverse. So.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. I never thought of that.
Yeah, it's really fun. Yeah, so, but anyways, like, even Sandal-san's there, and he's depressed because he can't paint outside. And the girls come up with a solution by having him use the school's art room as a studio. So they're slowly starting to make this old school part of the community get into stuff. And Yoshino also has some other ideas of what they could do with the other rooms, and they go more into that later. The girls end up running their proposal about the closing festival by Maki's dad, since he would be familiar with the Board of Education. He absolutely loves the idea and even offers to go with them when they present it to the board. They have also decided on a play at the end of this about releasing the spirit of the blood-soaked Santa.
Oh my god.
And like Maki's dad is kind of like not sure of the idea until like Yoshino's like, oh, but Maki's our lead director, so she's gonna do the whole thing, and then suddenly her dad's like, I'm in.
Yeah, her dad is such a sweetheart, honestly.
He's such a daddy's girl. I mean, not daddy's girl, Jesus.
Daughter's dad? I don't know. What would you call that? I don't know.
What would be the
there has to be a term for that we just not
there is, and neither of us can think of it right now. I know there has to be, but they end up recruiting some of the guys from the town and some girls from an acting troupe that Maki knows to help out in the play. Going on to the festival, the turnout is absolutely huge. By the way, it's animated. They completely packed the gymnasium. Every seat is full, and people were like standing on the sides. It's crazy. The first one's on stage is a performance by the town's Takoyaki Drums Club, and they officially have a way better beat than the one in Suki Gafart. Mm-hmm. So I just want you to know it was a nice beat. I really dig that beat. I was just sitting there. I was like, oh man, let's rewind this 30 seconds to listen to it again. It's nice. It
was pretty awesome. They animated all of it. Like the characters themselves were kind of like stick figures with like little circular eyes during that scene. But like,
yeah, sure.
They had to kind of like, make some concessions so they could actually animate the drum beat like
so
on
anyways,
time.
They actually do the beginning of the play before they start cutting to like different scenes afterwards, and then they kind of animate the ending of the scene, and they end it with the revealing of the large wall painting that we saw from the last episode to like everyone's joy. There's like some of the audience like, oh man, I remember that. I did that part of it in soap art. They close the ceremony with Yoshino proposing how they would like to make the building a public facility rather than closing it. She's met with lots of applause and people thinking it's a fantastic idea, basically. The girls end up celebrating their success that night and meet up the next day when the guys who are going to fix a drum pick it up. It turns out there's a special request made to fix it from an anonymous person, and they also already paid for it in full. The show like heavily suggests it was Maki's dad, so there was no skirting around that one.
He's like looking at the photo album that he took of like Maki in Santa clothes, and he's just like, he's such a doting father. So like, yeah, it was clearly him.
Doting father. Yeah, that's what we were looking for earlier.
Yeah. So yeah, there was another really well animated scene in like the middle of the episode. There was like a little tiny snowball fight, like right after Maki gets the news that she's going to be the director. Like Yoshino throws like a snowball at her face, and then she hits Yoshino with a snowball. It's so good, like right in the face. It's so ridiculous. The whole Bloody Santa play is fucking hilarious.
It's fantastic.
But like more importantly, like the unveiling of that like painting or like mosaic that they, the former classmates made, and like all these people coming back to their old high school and like or middle school, whatever it is, and seeing this play and like seeing their own artwork, it actually felt like really emotionally like true. Like it really hit, I felt. And that's the thing that the show has been capable of doing at certain points, is like really hitting home and like actually making something that makes you feel the emotions that it wants you to be feeling, and not like coercing you into feeling them, but just like showing you something that you can identify with. And like, yeah, I was just thinking about like, oh man, going back to my old elementary school or something with my friend, and like walking through those hallways and like remembering all of those memories from way, way, way back.
Yeah, that would be crazy.
It's pretty crazy. I did it once. It's just with my elementary school, and we saw actually one of our old teachers there who was still working there after like 15 years or whatever. It's crazy. So, yeah. I really like this episode.
I love this episode. Also, did you catch the part in the middle of the play where they're like, Maki's the Santa character, and she's like, thank God for the decreased birth rate in Japan, so I don't deliver to so many people.
Thank you for mentioning that, because that was fucking hilarious. That was my favorite parts. It's like way less work for Santa Claus. It's like, oh my God, it's so good.
It's just them playing light on that terrible, actually being a very terrible problem for them.
It was so good. Oh man, yeah, I highly recommend watching just this episode, maybe even just to see this play, because it's so funny.
Yeah. Is that it for it?
Yeah.
All right. Well, we can do Thursdays with gamers and get more into this controversialness between Bcom and I. So we're going to start off with episode 6, Gamers and Wipeout. Game over. It's so funny. You wrote 3 pages last week, and I maybe equaled you in notes.
Yeah, pretty much.
I just mainly focused on the scenes that did things that like changed who thought what of who. So that's kind of what I did. Mm-hmm. The rest of it is just kind of, I mean, you might as well just watch the episode if you want to see the rest of it. This is like a great, like if you can't make it to watch this episode, this will get you through it, and you could skip it if you needed to. But anyways,
yeah.
Urahara caught up with like Hoshi and Mori at the end of the last one, and they stopped to have some of the tea at that shop. While Urahara does convince her that Amano and him are not gay.
Good job.
Yeah, but like during their conversation, you like see Aguri and Amano sneak by, like holding trays to cover their face so they don't see them go by, and they were hiding in the booth next to him. And Hoshinomori asked Uehara what he thinks about Karen, and he says she is flawless, but then he like has an inner monologue like until you get to know her, because he knows about her obsession with Amano. And like he, some dumb reason, ends up giving her a head pat, and she runs out, and he goes chasing after her. And I know you hated this part.
Yeah, so just before we got to that part, before Amano and Aguri show up, there's a really funny line from Chiaki when like Uehara asks her like, how do you really feel about Amano? And she's like, I hope he gets on a helicopter built by Capcom. I was like, yes, that's Ouch. Such a ridiculous reference, but okay. But yeah, I did not like this part, because Tasuku to me is just legitimately cheating at this point. Like, he hasn't done anything physical besides, well, like a head pat in anime is fairly romantic most of the time. Like, but he's going out like with this girl. The way he talks about Aguri, he says like, oh yeah, I hang out with this other girl who's really clingy. And it's like, no, you're her girlfriend. I'm sorry, boyfriend. she's your girlfriend is what I meant to say. Like, you're not just hanging out with her. You're in a relationship that you are actively like playing down so you can be a player.
I'll agree. So yeah, you have to fault him for that. You don't say you just hang out with some girl when she's your girlfriend.
Yeah, and you don't like keep hitting on Chiaki. Like, there's no other reason for him to be hanging out with Chiaki so often. Like, besides that he actually does like her and is considering cheating on Aguri, I think. So, or he's very aware that Chiaki likes him and wants to benefit from that, maybe. I don't know. But yeah, before you start with the next scene, like, there's this part in the next scene where Aguri and Amano are sitting inside the restaurant. It happens at 3 minutes and 15 seconds into the episode, if you want to go check this out. And everything about the drawing and proportions of that scene is totally fucked up. So
I can't believe that passed editors.
It's so bad.
It's really bad.
Their booth we're looking out from outside and above the restaurant and down in the window at their booth, and it looks like their booth is like angled towards the screen. But then there's these little kids who run by outside that literally look like they might be 1 foot tall, because in terms of proportions,
inwards towards them, it's I because I read your notes, I kind of paused it here and like stared at it, and I could not make sense of this whole thing at all.
It's so weird. I was watching this episode with a friend, and he was the one who caught it initially. And then I went back and watched it again. I was like, oh my God, what happened there? So anyway, you can continue on.
Yeah, it's a bad atrocity. But anyways, Aguri and Amano stay behind and discuss what they're going to do about Amano getting to know Karen. He asks how Aguri confessed, and she tells him about how she changed her appearance to what she heard, and that he liked like simple ditzy girls and stuff. And then she just basically asked him out. And they both basically just decide they're going to help each other, you know, fight on. He's going to help Aguri, you know, keep staying with Urahara, and she's going to help Amano, you know, get with Karen-chan or whatever. So then we go to a quick next scene where Karen's being confessed to, and like she's just shutting everybody down brutally. And she ends up back at the game room where she gets her relationship advice from Misumi, who has had like very little in the show, but granted to him, he's not in the OP of like main characters, but neither is Aguri, right?
I don't remember. I got to think about it.
I want to say it's just Amano, Urahara, Karen, and Hoshinomori.
She might be in there at some point. I'm not sure.
Yeah, but they like really focus on those four. I may be wrong. I could be totally wrong. Don't quote me. Anyways, you know, they both decide to support each other. Karen gets confessed, really, whatever. But her what Misumi, his advice is to talk more openly, and by more openly he meant basically just analyzing what they're saying and being more gentle about the letdowns or the confessions or whatever she has to do.
I'm watching the OP, and Aguri is definitely in it.
Yeah. Okay. She's one like the main characters with the rest of them.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, that makes sense, because so it's like 5 of them. Yeah, because she's been way more prominent than this guy has.
This is true.
Yeah. So Amano is home that night, and he's like playing a dating sim when he picks like the worst option available and gets a bad ending. Do you remember what it was?
Yeah, he picked to run away when the girl was getting attacked by like a thug. He's like, run away. I was like, what the fuck is going on? And then I thought like, oh, maybe he's trying to like get all of the endings for the game. Like it turned out he was trying to get a bad ending with no, that was the girl he was trying to end up with in the end, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's the one he's always had bad endings with. And then they also go to a different later on where he shows all his save points. And he's going to various save points, trying different routes, trying to find the final route.
But what turns out to be the solution
Oh my god, I'm gonna get there. I gotta get past this little snippet first. But Urahara ends up messaging him and says he will get more people when he talks to Karen tomorrow, so people will have more. He's gathering people to witness him talk to Karen tomorrow, so people will have more respect when he does it. And he also makes fun of him if he fails. But then Aguri also had sent him a message telling him not to stay up too late playing video games. It's just like a joke. She's just like, oh, damn it. She knew what I was doing. He ends up starting his game back up, and this time he decides he's going to make all the girls happy in the game. He's not going to focus on one. And it works, and we can see where this is going tomorrow.
As soon as that happened, I was like, oh, God, no.
You just...
That is the wrong message to take from this. No.
This is some excellent foreshadowing. You're like, this is not going to get any better. This is going to only get worse. So... And then we basically just get a bunch of transition scenes of the rest of our main characters worrying about what's going to happen to when Amano meets with Karen after school, because he's going to go meet her. Karen's going to go meet Amano in his classroom, I think 2F. And like Aguri's worried about what Urahara's going to think. And like everybody literally goes through being completely wrong and actually being completely right at the same time.
Yeah, it's pretty good, actually. Especially Aguri.
It is so much chaos.
I like how Aguri actually had like a flow chart in her head that she was picturing too, like the one that the guy on Reddit makes every week.
Like, yeah, I saw that. And I was like, oh my god, it's the same freaking chart, dude.
But yeah, she totally guesses like, you know, showing up and trying to see how I react is exactly what a player would do. But Tasuku can't be that evil, can he? And I was like, oh god, yes he can.
Yes he can. But he wasn't doing it to be a player. He wanted to understand because he thought she was dating Amano, and he's like, I need to know the truth. So Karen goes to Amano's class. I
really liked that sequence, by the way. Just when Karen is walking through the hallway, it does a CGI of the whole hallway, and she keeps turning. It was actually like way more work than they needed to do for that scene, so I respect that. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, and she's even having her own inner monologue, basically doing what the other three characters did. Right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. She's not nearly as confused like as they are, but yeah.
Yeah. So she ends up at the classroom, and there's a huge crowd, and she walks in like Amano's like, oh shit, she showed up. So she walks up to him, and he starts his confession, and then like Karen starts tearing up on him because she thinks he's going to end their friendship, and he completely misreads this. And then we look at the other three completely misreading of the other three characters in the crowd. It's just fucking hilarious. Everybody's just misreading this entire situation. It is going to shit. But I think what's so great about this is it's absolute chaos, but we see the paths of everything.
Yeah.
So it's I just love this. And like, even Karen is misinterpreting it, followed by Amano doing the same. So Amano thinks back to his game where the girl confessed to him, and he accidentally blurts out, please go out with me. And Karen, without missing a beat, anticipating something else, says, yes, gladly. And then everybody basically loses their shit at this point, and the episode ends.
I like that they both accidentally did the right thing that we've been waiting for. Just like for various reasons, they both accidentally finally got over all their obstacles, and just boom. We'll see where it goes from here. I'm hoping that this confession at least leads to like a date for them or something.
Yeah, he did kind of mutter, wait, I said that wrong. But then like everybody was like, oh shit.
I also like, so when Kate is in the classroom and he sees like the other three people around,
their faces are fucking priceless.
Yeah, but then he says like, oh, even if she turns me down, I'll still have my friends. And then he pictures his friends. So he pictures like, who's he picture? Uehara, and then like Aguri, I think. And then he pictures Mono-san in her Grand Blue Fantasy avatar. And then also the girl from the dating sim as being one of his friends. Like, I'll still have them, is like what he's picturing.
Oh, God, I missed that part.
I think
I was laughing too hard.
Yeah, because the best thing about that scene was the voice acting specifically for Tasuku and Aguri's saves, because they're not saying anything out loud, but in their inner monologue is just like screaming, and it's so funny. Like Aguri's scream is so good. She's like, ah! Like inside, it's really, really good.
Yeah, even the earlier scenes when she's in the classroom thinking about that shit and just like freaking out. Everybody around her's like, what is wrong with you?
Yeah, and while the show still continues to sort of like move away from gaming as like a main topic, it still had enough like gaming analogies and metaphors this episode, even if it was dating sims, which meh.
Yeah, but, I saw that in your notes, and I want to say, all right, the game is called Gamers, so you think they would be more focused on gaming, but really I think the show should be called Gamers and Relationships.
Yeah,
because
something like that.
Everybody is together right now purely because of gaming.
Yeah, this is true.
And now we're just exploring their relationships with still kind of talking about gaming a little bit, just keeping it mildly evolved. So
I do think I liked this episode a lot more than the last one, with that I had a lot of issues with, like all the confusion and like the misunderstandings, like because it was all coming to a head this time and it was a little bit tighter and I understood people's motivations and actions a lot better. It like really hit more with me. I liked it. I was laughing like the whole episode. It was really good.
That was a very funny episode.
Yep.
But god damn, I'm still talking. Mm-hmm. This was a terrible season. That just how our picks landed. That like as the best I tried to make it so that we had every other. It was like impossible.
I did it like the first week somehow, or like the third week of shows. Somehow I made it every other, but I don't think it was able to do it every other week.
No, because once we hit, and it got really bad once we hit the skips for the Japanese broadcasting. It just got absolutely terrible. Yes. But anyways, let's do some convenience store boyfriends, or I like to call everybody's me. Me as an MI. So many me's. And I just literally watched this one 2 hours ago. So this will be fun.
Yeah.
We're on episode 6, September, and I would bet $100 episode 7 is October. And episode 8 is November.
Oh, very close there. Very close.
November. Yeah. So anyways, we start off with Mishima is remembering the girl from his childhood, telling him a story about a merman prince. The little girl gives him the book, and her name is on it, which is Mashiki Mi.
It just ends after the me, which is important.
So that's which is just maybe possibly a shortening of her name.
Or somebody else's name.
You will... This is all speculation, but we will get into this.
Yes.
Mishima and Honda are on their way to school when Honda starts to remember how it went with the walk he had with Mihashi. We still don't get any confirmation how the last scene ended. There was no literal shot of them kissing. So...
I still think it was a kiss. I still haven't gone back to watch it. You know what? I will go back and watch it right now while we're talking.
Do it, because I watched it 100 times. I think she kissed him.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That's my big thing. It still does not tell us what happened, or if they literally just ended staring at each other. But it also turns out the Iozora festival is coming up, and there's a lot of excitement in there about it. We move on to the next scene with Mihashi staring blankly into a shelf of books in the library when Mashiki comes up and greets her, taking Mihashi by surprise. Honda shows up almost immediately, looking for her, and Mihashi is like acting very extra shy. It's different from what she's acted before around Honda. And Honda just wants to walk home together and talk about the Azora festival, but then like she panics and grabs Mihashi and runs off, saying she already had plans for her. The two girls are finally alone, and Mashiki asks if something happened at the festival, and Mihashi's shy reaction to her is enough to understand of what happened or get an idea. Mihashi asks Mashiki if she's interested in anybody, and all she says is she isn't sure. And even once Mihashi walks away, we see her even acting more unsure. It's just good animation of how she looks unsure. Mm-hmm. If we go by what Mishima and Mihashi say in the next scene, we can clearly assume Honda and Mihashi are dating now, right?
Yeah, oh, definitely. Yeah, even though
the show does not flat out tell you, but their conversation is almost as indirect without being direct as you can get without saying they're flat out dating. Am I correct in this, or?
Yeah, no, they're definitely dating. It's just that like Mihashi is still being like, she's still acting like she's like a prisoner in this relationship, which is still like upsetting to me. Like,
I just don't think she knows how to react, which seems to be an ongoing theme, because this even comes up with the other two. Neither of them know how to react in a relationship. Mm-hmm. So, was it Mishima makes it back home. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I gotta go back. Bam, I'm here. I love all these writings and can't tell where the freak I'm at. So the two end up walking home, and Mihashi asks what it's like to be interested in someone, and if he is interested in anybody. This, of course, shocks him, and it's a great scene of like how to do awkward and cringy scenes well. Like, cringe is tended to be like bad, but in a movie or a show, you can do cringe well, because if you get a reaction, an intended reaction of your audience, that's just good writing. And I thought this was great. Did you cringe at this scene? Just be like, ooh.
Yeah, a little bit for sure.
Yeah. And like, it seemed realistic also to me. Mm-hmm. So Mishima makes it back home, and of course Honda's there because he basically lives there. And like, Honda's like giving them shit. He's like, you should have just confessed on the spot. They're just broed it out and whatnot.
Yeah.
But then like, he's like, well, you only need to worry about yourself. And then Honda says something like, she ran away from him. And this can be taken as one of two ways, since the show is not flat out telling us stuff. One, she ran away again at that last festival, or he's talking about the library incident earlier that day. I believe it's the library incident.
I think so, yeah.
But my mind immediately went to the festival. But then when I thought about it, I was like, no, he's talking about the library incident. It's the most recent thing that happened. So
yeah.
Mishima and Mashiki run into each other the next day running errands for their classes projects, because they're all doing, have to do the classroom projects everybody's seen. If you're listening to us, I hope to God you've seen anime when you've seen festivals, and they do. Somebody does a haunted house and somebody does something else for their classrooms. It's just, yeah. So that's what they're doing. And Mihashi talks about how she has always liked picture books and would like to write one of her own someday. Mishima uses this opportunity, good for him.
Thank God.
Because he's going to fuck it up later, to ask if she has a favorite picture book. She blushes and instead asks him if he has one. He, of course, says The Merman Prince. And she says she remembers having that one as well, and so on and so forth. But before he can go any farther, he gets a text and uses it to chicken out and leaves. Very quick 15-second scene of Mashiki taking some medication. We know she isn't supposed to be physically active. We know that she has some conditions going on and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And we can assume that's why she's taking it. But to just give it this standalone 15-second scene points out this is more important than the show has led on so far.
Yes.
I feel definitely. Like this was like a standout scene. It was just like they had to have put this here for a reason. Mm-hmm. So next day, it's the day before the festival. Some of the classes, people can stay later. They can stay till 6 o'clock. But if they need to stay later, they can put in a form to the, presidents or whatever, and actually be able to stay till 9 o'clock. And Honda and our two couples here are some of those later classes. But Honda uses it to his advantage to walk Mihashi home, who obviously is like against it at first, but then she does go with him. But then Honda also gets Mishima and Mashiki to walk home together also. But Mashiki proposes. They walk around a little bit, and they visit some of the classes. They see like some band class. They see another class like practicing some type of dance and stuff, so forth. And they end up making it to, well, before they make it to this room, Mashiki has this very specific talk about how this will be their memories and they will always remember these and stuff like that. This
death flag.
Thank you. This has been done in other shows as this is an important part of her life, but this is put up as like a death flag. Like these are going to be the last of her memories. Like she doesn't have longer to live. I totally got this. Mm-hmm. Also, it's horrible. But they end up in the classroom that's like doing a storybook theme thing. And she's looking at the books, and she accidentally knocks out a couple books, and one of them has to be the Merman Prince storybook. And Mishima grabs this advantage really quickly and explains the whole reason he started swimming was because of that book. And he's talking about how, this girl talked to him in kindergarten, read the book to him and all that fun stuff. And he finally gets to the point and asks if she went to Wakaba Kindergarten 2 with 2 O's, T-O-O-O. And she's kind of like, what do you mean to at first? And like he goes on and keeps explaining how this girl was important to him. And then he's like, is that you? And she suddenly gets like this terrified look on her face and starts shaking
and crying.
And then the scene just ends.
Yeah. So I have 2 theories about that ending. The first theory, which I thought was right, was that there was another girl in the kindergarten who was her sister who died. And so the different name on the book.
Twin sister?
Maybe twin sister, yeah.
Well, it would have to be if they're in the same year.
Yeah, exactly. And so it would be, what's the name on the book? It's a Mashiki Me. So it would be like Mashiki Me something else. Not her first name, but another first name that's very similar.
Yeah.
Like a twin.
Mihashi, but like I don't know, Miyazaki or fucking whatever.
But now as we've been talking about that, it may not be as complicated as that. It may just be that this was her book, but she's so sad because she's so afraid that she's been diagnosed with like a terminal illness and she might not have long to live. And she may have just found love, but it might be like too late because she's about to die. So it could be either of those things.
She feels heartbroken because if he loves her, then she's going to leave him in 2 years or something,
Yeah. So that's rough. This is sort of depressing ending. By the way, I went back and looked. I posted a picture of the end of that August episode with the kiss between Honda and
I still don't think that could be a kiss.
I think he's leaning into her and kissing her. I think
he may have been beginning to lean in, and then she jumped forward and met him halfway, surprising him. I just hope that happened.
I hope you're right.
Otherwise,
too, but I highly
rapey.
doubt it because she literally said right before that happened that I don't like you.
But she acts the opposite of what she says.
I know. It's so dumb though.
So it would make sense for her to do that.
That's true. In a weird way, yes. But yeah, I'm still annoyed at Mihashi for acting that way, though. I just wish she would get over herself and just like tell people
I think
how
she's
she feels.
just so lost. She has absolutely no way to react. She does not how. I don't know. I read a lot. They're like, I don't know what to think of these feelings, and like,
I feel so bad for Honda. Like honestly, because I can't
necessarily relate.
Yeah,
but then I can kind of see if maybe you were led a sheltered life, you would be very confused.
Yeah, for sure.
Which would explain why she acts the way she does.
Yeah, no, it could definitely happen. I don't know. Yeah. Especially around that age, girls don't know what the hell they're doing. Guys don't know what the hell they're doing. So
nobody knows what the fuck they're doing, dude.
All sorts of weird things can happen. Yeah.
It's complete chaos. I think gamers is more straightforward than what my middle school life was.
Probably is, to be honest. All right, should we move on?
Yes. Give me some rage.
All right. Finally, Fridays, we're back with Rage of Bahamut Virgin Soul, episode 18, which is called Invictus. All right, so this has been off for a week or two, so thank God it's back because it's still good. Nina is returning home from her date with Cherios, and she finds Favreau waiting for her, who says, "Looks like you fell for a guy who's real trouble," but she denies it. And then Azazel shows up, and Nina apologizes to him for not being able to turn into a dragon when he really needed it. And he says it doesn't matter and that he never expected anything from her, but you can tell he's a little bit miffed about it still. So Azazel then sees Muguro again, and in a weird scene, he just walks right past Muguro or L without saying a single word. Which was kind of interesting to me. It didn't get. I mean, there's more that'll come later in the episode, but I wasn't sure at that moment what that meant. The whole group holds a meeting on what to do about Cherios's like super weapon that he has. Their only real lead is the bracelet that Cherios wears. Rita heard from a noblewoman patient of hers that a ball is going to be held in 4 days. So Kaiser says he'll figure out a way to get an invite to the ball, and then Nina offers to be like the infiltrator who will steal the bracelet away from Cherios. And Nina, to everybody's surprise, says she's learned how to turn into a dragon whenever she wants now. They don't believe her, so she like flips up on the table and behind some crates and just transforms. And it surprises everybody, especially Azazel. And he gets really upset and he asks, why? Why now? Because like if she'd been able to transform when he really needed her, it would have like maybe changed everything for him. But she says it's because she's learned what it feels like to be truly loved. And this kind of infuriates Azazel, who walks off. Meanwhile, the head of the Onyx soldiers is meeting with Cherios to report about the red dragon being spotted over the city the night before. Of course, Cherios was riding on that red dragon. And the Onyx soldier knows it was Cherios. He saw him in the last episode, but the king denies all knowledge of this happening. And so afterwards, the Onyx soldier goes and meets with Alisand, the head of the Orleans Knights, in secret. Muguro, who's concerned about Azazel, tries to track him down. But as he's doing so, like he comes across like some like wagon theft, and like Muguro starts getting chased by men in the streets who think he might have done it, I think. But at the last moment, Azazel like flies in, swoops down, and saves him and carries him away. He still kind of refuses to speak to Muguro, who continues to follow after him. He puts his hat on Muguro's head and he like walks off, and Muguro keeps following him. And Azazel makes his way to the square where the demons made their last stand against Cherios. And he's kind of mourning for them and regretting his mistakes. And Muguro apologizes for not being able to help. And Azazel tells him, "You have nothing to apologize for," and finally smiles at him. So I think, I don't know, like Azazel is still processing everything that happened with his demon, revolution that went wrong.
And they had to reinforce a sexy demon lady getting crushed again. I hate you, show.
So Alisand, meanwhile, is trying to blow off some steam at like a demon brothel. But he's remembering the conversation he had with the Onyx soldier earlier. And apparently what he asked was to join the Onyx soldiers because he thinks that the Orleans Knights are just done for. And the Onyx soldier just told him it wouldn't even be worth adding you to our squad, which is an interesting way to say it. Like, worth what? Like, do they have to pay something? Is there some expense to adding someone to their group? I don't know. So
I didn't take expense. I felt like it was more like he's not physically good enough. Yeah.
Yeah. So just bring them down or something like that. So it turns out that at the brothel, Kaiser has disguised himself as a server. He's got like a blonde wig on with horns. And the whole reason was because he wanted to be able to see like Alisand and Diaz. But he looks at Alisand funny and he drunkenly like gets punched in the face, which knocks off his wig. So the jig is up basically. But Kaiser like sits down with him and he asks Alisand for his help to infiltrate the ball because he's from a renowned family called the Vispontis. And Alisand finally lets out what he's been unable to say until now and yells at Kaiser for ruining the Orleans Knights and their own lives and making them all worthless. But Kaiser tells him, "You're not worthless. You're like my prized subordinate officers." And he takes the blame for everything and begs for Alisand's help, even if it means that like he's going to die, like Kaiser's going to die for this. So Alisand comes around and agrees to help out as long as it's nothing dangerous. And so they're back together. Nina is laying under the moonlight and looking at her like a little red claw necklace that Cherios gave to her last episode. And she like gets up and screams into the night like, "I love you," really loud. And Favreau shows up and he's like, "I came to see what all the commotion was about," and asks who gave her the necklace.
She's so embarrassed.
She calls him like a pervert, like an etchy for looking at the necklace. And he's like, "Really?" And so he warns her to do what she can to make the right decisions. And He thinks about how things ended up with him and Amira, and still wonders if he made the right decision at the end of the original show. And I was like, yes, finally the first mention of Amira in this entire show. Even if they only just showed her face in the flashback, I'm glad that Favreau is still thinking about Amira, because it's something I wanted to know. I want to know what he feels about that, and he still feels conflicted about it, basically.
So, are we to assume she was sacrificed at the end of the last one?
I think that's what that scene heavily implied, is that she was, the decision was to kill her, to sacrifice her, to save the world. So if that's the real ending of her story, I'm okay with it. I just wanted more clarity on what did happen there, because it was kind of unclear.
And they just they didn't kill Bahamut, they just darn it, lost the word. Concealed, something like that. Locked away.
Yeah, they just locked him away again, I guess. Yes.
Okay, so I don't know if it's necessarily she's dead or she's just left in suspense of
that's a good point.
Having him locked away. But
she
yeah, we have no idea.
Yeah. So at this point, Favreau just straight up asks Nina, "Do you love Cheerios?" And she replies, "I can't say." And to
just screamed it a minute ago.
Yeah, and then to tease her, he walks up to where she was and starts screaming, I love you, like over and over and over again. And she tries to get him to stop, like jumping all over him, but he won't stop.
I love that, because she's like, I don't know, and he's like, oh no, you do.
Yeah,
and then
you
just like
definitely
mocks her for it.
It's so funny. And then so after the credits, the Onyx soldier pays this demon mercenary, who I don't think we've seen before. He pays him like a large sum of money to kill the red dragon, to kill him.
I wanted to ask you that, because I was like, it's been a while since I've seen season 1. Mm-hmm. You've seen it fairly recent to this one. You watched it in anticipation of this one, if you recognize him or not. So
I don't recognize him. I mean, it could be something that came back, but I don't recognize him. Yeah. So yeah, I'm glad this show is back. This was sort of like more of a setup episode for the following episodes. But I really just liked the character moments between Favreau and Nina a lot. So
yeah, because I felt at the end there really wasn't not much that happened. It was just character interactions and relationships between people. Not too much on like the plot of the story. Just basically getting things squared away and whatnot. I felt like really the big importance was the final scene after the credits when the Onyx Knights guy hired a demon to kill Nina.
Yeah, so that'll kick off the next part
and I
of
think that just means the next episode is just going to be awesome, and it's going to be all about the plot and just crazy awesomeness. And hopefully they use these last 2 weeks to just make like the animated fight scenes like so awful that our notes are, we're not going to tell you about it. Just fucking watch it.
Pretty much.
We can't do it justice.
It's too good.
It's too good.
It's still my favorite show of the season, like by far. Like it's so far and away above everything else for me right now. But
favorites of favorites? Yeah. It's probably mine too, only because season 1 was so grand and season 2 is still so good.
Yeah. Like just the animation alone, like for me, like puts it above a lot of other things. So
really? Just the animation alone?
I just love the look of it.
What's your second favorite then?
Ooh, that's tough because it's changed quite a bit. I think Sakura Quest at this point, which is weird, right? Because earlier in the season I would have said Maiden Abyss or Princess Principal, but
if I hadn't picked it up, I think you would have dropped it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Sakura Quest, like, because it's come on very strong and it's had many good episodes in a row now.
Oh man, the last couple episodes are just like, home runs. It's just like, wow, you're just gonna end this season on a bang, aren't you? Wow, which is great because it makes me glad I stuck with it. But
let's move on to my former favorite show, which is Maiden Abyss.
A former favorite?
Yeah, it's just had some issues, and it's the pace is slowing down to a crawl, which is what I don't like. But
I thought I felt the same way, but then when I looked at it, how many layers are there to this abyss?
I think there's 6, and they're still on the second one.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think this
like
is set up for a 24 episode run. Like, I think this is going to be one of the first of 2 seasons, basically.
Ooh.
Yeah. Because I can't see them finishing this season.
Well, then the pace is kind of, it's a little slow for 24, but they could definitely speed it up. Like, they blew through that first layer quickly.
They did, but like that first layer was nothing,
they weren't even in the layers, so.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see. So basically episode 7 is called The Unmovable Sovereign. And this episode opens back up on the surface with Habo telling Nat and Shiggy about who Ozen is. And she's like a white whistle, and she's been a white whistle for 50 years. Like, she's pretty old, and her main ability is her unmatched strength. And so each of the white whistles has like some supreme ability, basically, that makes them stand out. She also has a secret relic that Habo refuses to tell the kids about, but basically it is the vessel that Rico was carried to the surface in. So Ozen left off the last episode like bringing them into that room and showing them a white cube. So apparently Liza bought this vessel before it could be auctioned off back at the surface. So to open it, Ozen blows her white whistle, which makes like a pretty cool whistle sound. And the cube reacts to it and like sends ripples through the surface. And then it like kind of reacts like a creature and just like cracks open all at once, like an egg or something. And inside is like all this red like tissue, like muscle and sinew. Like, it looks like a living thing, basically. So Ozen explains that the vessel doesn't work the way they think it does. Also, Habo in the first scene was saying, I hope she doesn't tell those kids about the vessel and what it really does. But she does tell them. So anyone placed inside the vessel still gets killed by the curse of the abyss. However, they start moving again after they died. They tested this on animals, but Ozen really only understood it after Rico used it, because we find out Rico was dead on birth. She was stillborn.
Stillborn, yep.
So then she was placed inside the vessel and she started moving again. So she is like a reanimated corpse. That's what Rico is. She is not necessarily a living person, which is interesting.
Well, but she has nothing at this point to make her think of, like, as we would think a zombie.
Yeah, she seems to be growing like a normal girl. Like, I assume she'll get older and bigger, so she's not like your typical zombie.
The only odd thing is how she reacts to the sickness.
Yes.
What was it? She has to wear the glasses when she's in the regular world, so it doesn't make her sick or something like that?
Exactly, yeah. So it's weird. So the thing that Rico saw in the halls last episode was like some meat that Ozen had just thrown inside the vessel to test it out, and it got like out and started scurrying around, basically, because it like reanimated into like a living version of whatever that meat used to be. So both the meat and Rico, back when she was first reborn, tried to walk to the center of the abyss for some reason. We don't know exactly why that might be, but like we know that like the powers of the abyss are stronger towards the center. So that must have something to do with it. Ozen tells Rico that she despises her and like goes to like reach for her head. Like, Ozen's being really like aggressive here, and Reg stops her, and Ozen squeezes Reg's arm with her like vice-like grip and asks him if he has any conception of God. And she explains that the people around here where she is don't believe in God, but instead believe in the abyss, because the netherworld is unknown and the deeper layers of the abyss are feared, just like how a god would be feared. So the people who live down here, the abyss is their god, is what she explains. She tells Reg that the reason the Obad robots aren't listed in the guide is that it would shake the foundations of people's belief that it is very difficult to descend and ascend from the abyss. Basically, because, you know, he can just go up and down. He's a robot person. Like, so he is like outside of people's realm of understanding of how the abyss works. Therefore, they've kept his existence hidden from the general public so that they continue to religiously believe in the abyss, basically. Ozen tells Reg that she's glad he lost his memory because she needs to dispose of him before he remembers anything. And then she starts like flailing Reg around, literally like busting a hole in the concrete floor with his body to test his sturdiness. But it just seems like she's attacking him for now. And Rico like comes over and starts begging Ozen to stop, and she just flicks Rico with her like in her forehead with her finger, but it's powerful enough to like send her flying across the room and make her bleed from her head, and it's pretty bad.
Bust her head open. It's brutal. Yeah.
So Reg decides like this is enough. I need to use my incinerator, and so he tries to calm down and control it, but that hesitation allows Ozen to move closer to him and grab his cannon hand and see like, oh, what does this do? And she aims the hand at Rico, and so just at the last second he's able to knock it loose, and it fires just through the ceiling. And then Reg calls Ozen like irredeemable and attacks her, but Ozen's body has been implanted though with like 1,000 men wedges, it turns out, because Reg's attack like unveils her arms basically. And so she says she's inserted like these things at 120 points around her body that make her like exoskeleton way stronger. So Ozen puts on her cloak and hat, and like she's like fully dressed now after explaining this, and like grabs Reg, and Reg just falls unconscious. And there's this kind of funny scene of like Rico like screaming. There's like a bunch of speed lines because she thinks that Reg is dead, but he's just fallen unconscious because he used his incinerator. She screams for Reg to wake up, and he comes to for a moment, but then Ozen like drops him on the floor and just like starts stomping on his body with all her might. So that's where the scene cuts. And okay, so later, after all of that, Reg wakes up to Ozen putting his body back together. And she's surrounded by several men who call themselves subterranean bandits, and they're part of Ozen's cave raider squad. And Meruk called them here because she was worried for Reg and Rico because Ozen was like losing her shit. But Ozen tells Meruk that like, while Reg and Rico didn't make a single correct decision during what she's now calling a test, Merrill acted exactly how she should to like save his or her friends. I'm still not sure if Merrill is a boy. They haven't said whether she is or he is. As punishment for disobeying these orders, Merrill will be strung up naked later, though. So that seems to be the going punishment for little kids in this world, is to be strung up naked, which is kind of messed up.
Yeah.
At least we didn't see it this time. Maybe it'll be on next episode.
That was my big point. Was like, hey, we went an entire episode without seeing Rico naked, but did make a reference to a trap being strung up naked. So yeah,
this is true. So yeah, like I said, apparently all of this like violence, this insane violence, was an elaborate test by Ozen to see if Rico and Reg are capable of descending further into the abyss as they want to do. And they basically failed. Like, she warns that like the creatures that inhabit the deeper parts of the abyss are far more cunning and tough than she is. And Ozen then tells Rico she also lied about one other thing, and that was Liza's grave. When she found it, she found that no one was buried there. So Liza could still be alive. And we get a flashback at that point from many years ago when Ozen is speaking to a young Liza who looks a lot like Rico when she was still a young girl. And she asks Ozen about her like weird hairstyle. And Ozen explains it's to cover up the scars that physically appear due to spending time at the bottom layer of the abyss. Like, the bottom layer just constantly attacks your mind, and then there are physical like manifestations of that with like scars around your brain and your head. And so this to me explained a little bit of why Ozen is such like a weird character and like a weird person. And I think it's because she's not all there anymore because of the time she's spent in the abyss.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. Also, she's pretty physically violent with Liza when she's a little girl. And so I was like, oh, okay, I guess she's consistent at least. She like knocks the shit out of all the little kids. Once they've recovered, Ozen tells Reg and Rico that the next large group of cave raiders arrives in 3 weeks. So she's going to try to attempt to like beat them into shape until then. And so their first assignment is a survival test. So she takes them to like the outer edge of the abyss and tells them like, you need to stay here for 10 days, and Reg's not allowed to use his incinerator. because if he does use it, it's like a death sentence for Rico, because what she was doing when she was testing him is finding out that whenever you use your incinerator, you faint like 10 minutes after using it, and then you don't wake up for another 2 hours. No matter what I did to you, you didn't wake up. So yeah, like if he just like is not there to protect Rico for 2 hours, she's gone for. Like she's done for. She's too vulnerable. Right. So, and even though the creatures are like not as nasty at this outer edge of the abyss, she warns them, don't hesitate, don't show mercy to anything, or you will be killed. So, and that's where the episode ends. So yeah, like I said, like this, it's going really slow now, because you would expect them to just be descending to the next area of the abyss, but it's possible they could spend like another like couple weeks on level 2. There might be something that forces them to go down, like maybe they have to run away or something, but I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, it depends on how they're going to jam 10 days into an episode or half an episode or 2 episodes. Or
yeah, I mean, it could be a montage. It could be nothing.
It could be 10 episodes.
Probably not. Let's hope not. This isn't Dragon Ball Z.
Oh, God, that'd be horrible.
Yeah, so it's moving slowly now. And yeah, I don't know. Like, I have to believe they haven't announced anything about a second season as far as I know, but I have to believe they're planning for 12 more episodes after this at this pace that they're
There
going.
has to be.
Yeah.
There's no, I don't feel like they can end it, but are you done with this one?
Yeah, I think so.
All right, let's move on to 18 If, episode 7, which is I loved and hated this episode at the same time. So, starting off, the show has changed its art style, and I really loved it. So did you, Bcom, right?
Yeah, like at the first 10 seconds of the episode, I was like, this is exactly why I'm watching this show, because apparently this show has a different director every single week. But this was the first time that was really apparent because of the drastic change in the visual style. It looked like halfway between like almost like a Pixar movie or like animated claymation or something. It was really cool looking.
Yeah, and like you also said, it's like a storybook theme type of thing going on. It's just really cool. But Haruto ends up waking up as a scarecrow, and he's giving a message to basically save the maiden in a tower called Nene. By a person known who they eventually call the Tin Man. If he doesn't, everybody stays looking like they are, which is horrible because Katsumi is there and he's a lion. If you haven't figured out yet, we're talking about the Wizard of Oz.
Yep.
And they even just go further to just establish it by saying Haruto is brainless because he's the Scarecrow, and then we know the Scarecrow is brainless, and blah, 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 blah. Everybody knows Wizard of Oz. I mean, if you don't, go watch it. Oh, wow.
All the Albert.
So they also have this flower with 6 petals, and they have to save Nene before the flower loses all its petals. And then the Tin Man ends up teleporting them with some card magic that he has to a town just outside the tower. They see a classroom having exchange students being added to their class, and we know one of the boys is actually a prince from another kingdom. And he also has a friend with him who they specifically point out as somebody else named Pot, with round glasses and a scarf. Harry Potter.
He does look a lot like Harry Potter, especially from like the British covers of the books. He looks a lot like that.
Yeah. So Pole is the prince, sees Nene, and falls in love with her immediately. He's also a Tin Man, obviously. We figure it out very quickly. So they transport them again to a street inside the town. They see Pole, Pot, and Nene walking down the street. There's a cat in the middle of the street, and Pot runs out to save it, and he gets it, but he's hit by a truck, but he's okay. He just has a broken leg. They end up hiding the cat back at Pole's place, and he takes a bath later on with the cat, which is just like unbelievable, even with a dream. I'm just like, wow, this is like stretching even me saying it's a dream. This is unbelievable. Yeah. So what I want to say about the scene, because I want to counter Bcom's thing later, is that when Pot runs out into the street to capture the cat. The bodyguards do not stop him.
Yes,
and he gets hit and he gets injured. So we go ahead and moving on and let the kids build an island in the middle of a river, and they build a castle, and they're like, oh, it's the kingdom of sunshine. This is great. This is what you call the kingdom if it's a sunshine one, blah, blah, blah. They end up transporting again, and Pole gets... And like I keep talking about these other characters because our main characters are just observing this whole thing, except for Pole. Even Pole is observing himself at this point until he gets self-inserted later on.
Yep.
And they get taken away, and the cat gets put out in the middle of the street again. And Pole runs out to save the cat, but this time when he does and a truck almost hits him, his bodyguards show up and stop the trucks, and they take everybody away. And the Tin Man transports him again. He ends up in front of the tower. There's actually on movable tracks, and then like, oh my god, you're just batshit insane at this point. The ghost from Nene shows up, and he follows, and then he chases her up a tube, and he's like, I just want to meet him or something crazy. And Haruto and Katsumi literally get forced into a different room with lots of TVs. At this point, they have contributed absolutely nothing other than just being an audience for this show for Pole. Yeah. So now they've literally been thrusted into a room of TVs to purely observe. This is a big problem with me for this. I'm like, why are they even here if that's all they're going to do? Mm-hmm. The castle ends up turning into a rocket. They blast off onto the moon. At this point, everything, is just bonkers. And basically, Tin Man is Pole, and he killed Pot so he could become king and make everything all better. And Nene is super pissed about it. And it turns out his advisors made him do it. And after the credits, the girl wakes up in the real world, and she's just crying. They're in the original bodies. And what was the real world? What all the other episodes tell us something involved the real world.
Well, I'll get into the final scene a little bit first. Yeah, the final scene is the only
what did he do in the real world?
Real world.
And why was our main characters even here?
So we find out in the final scene the characters were in the hospital, right? So they were worried about this girl who had Sleeping Beauty syndrome.
They were in the hospital?
Yeah, they were in that final scene. Yeah. If you can go back and watch it right
I thought it was just her crying, waking up and crying in the bed like, I wish I had met you. And I was like...
before that happened, you see Haruto in the hospital. Like, he comes out of a door. And so basically he sees...
world?
Yeah. No, it's in the real world. In the real world. You should go back and watch that final scene.
Wait, so this is the first episode? Okay, now I'm just like, why the fuck is he in the real world?
Okay, so let me explain it to you. Okay, so what happened, the girl, Nene, is in a coma in the hospital, right? She is the girl with the Sleeping Beauty syndrome this time around. There's somebody running through the hospital hallways that is like a patient who is throwing like newspapers saying extra, 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 like the rabbit in the dream world.
Yeah.
Also, she has the books Wizard of Oz, like an audio book that she's been listening to by her bed.
I saw that.
So like there's a lot of things that are going on around her in the outside world that are playing into what's happening in the dream world. And Haruto is in the hospital. Like he comes out and sees like the hallway. Like, so they've been clearly trying to save this girl by going into her dreams. But this is very much like a short film that is clearly something that they wanted to do with this series that like I feel focuses way less on the main characters to tell the story that they wanted to tell. So something we didn't really get into is that the main characters in this are called Pol and Pot. And that is a direct reference to the Cambodian dictator Pol Pot, who was the leader of the Khmer Rouge. And one of the things that he did was he killed intellectuals, like mass murdering intellectuals and many other people, and leading to a lot of starvation as well in his country. Yeah,
that's really crazy unless you know that.
Yeah, no, like this doesn't make a lot of sense until you think about that. Like one of the ways that he even designated intellectuals was just people who wore glasses. So in this dream world, Pot wears glasses, and there's even a scene where Pol like is picking up Pot's broken glasses after he realized what he did, that he sentenced him to death, and he's standing
and just
on.
Before that, he has all the papers laid out, and he's just stamping, things of execution, and everybody has glasses. And I didn't realize that until you said that.
Yeah. And you're right that his advisors forced the stamp down on the page that had pot on it. Which I also thought, well, I'll get into that in a second. But he goes after that scene, he picks up the broken glasses, he's standing on like a mountain of glasses. So I definitely think that represents like the intellectuals who were killed during this like Cambodia genocide, basically. And so like even in the show, we even see like Tin Man and Pole getting a newspaper that says that 70,000 people died of starvation in his kingdom. So it's definitely obviously linking back to that Cambodian dictator. Yeah,
it's referencing that, but I don't know how it's talking about what happens to the girl in the real world.
So that's the thing that is completely left up to interpretation. What I think
and that killed me because they've always established that every episode up to this point.
Yeah.
So I ended it just going, well, what happened to her story?
Yeah, so I think that Pole and Pot inside of the dream world are one person. I think Pot represents like the intellectual side, like his innocence, or also the cat could represent like a loss of innocence because like his advisors don't allow him to save the cat the second time around. They force him to kill off Pot, which is like the intellectual side of him.
I feel like you're digging, dude.
I don't think so. I think this episode is like extremely metaphorical.
Yeah, but I say that because I didn't know this history until you just told me, which is very specific.
It is. So clearly this craziness was based off something. I mean, the episode also makes reference to Alice in Wonderland with like the rabbit. And it also makes reference to the French Revolution with Pole in one scene saying like they're starving, let them eat cake, like Marie Antoinette from the French. So like they threw way too many references into this. I think if this had been more streamlined and a little bit more understandable, this could have hit with a lot more weight. And that's my biggest problem with the episode is that like I had to go look at Wikipedia and read like analysis of this episode to even come close to understanding what was going on. Okay,
so even if you are right, you had to do research yourself just to understand this.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, to be fair, the episode made me want to go do that research because I was like, what the hell was the deal with this episode? Like, I've watched it twice. So I watched it the first time, then I read about it, then I watched it the second time, and it made more sense that second rewatch.
Well, that's crazy because once it ended on me, I had no idea where to start to look into it. I was just like, oh, I got the Wizard of Oz stuff. I got the Harry Potter stuff. The rest of it, I didn't even think it was something else. I thought it was like an original story. I was just like, well, why don't we? And even with with what you've gone with, it still kills me. I don't know this girl's real life story, which is what I want to know the most. It kills me. And our main characters were there for absolutely 0% reason. I'm doing Donald Trump fingers right now. Zero reasons. There is no reason for our main characters to be here.
Yeah, they kind of didn't need to be there at all.
No, they observed just like we did. I mean, to the point they literally shoved them to a room to observe. Holy shit!
So here, I'll read off my last theory about this. So like I said, in the end, I think Pot and Pole were two aspects of the same person. Pot representing their intellectual compassionate side, whereas Pole was more cowardly and selfish, striving for power and oblivious to the damage he was causing those around him. And when they're in space, Nene keeps repeating that, I want to see him, I want to see him. And she means she wants to see Pot, or the good side of Pole Pot that no longer exists. Because Pole killed it off. Yeah. But hold on, let me finish. Let me finish. In the end, I don't know how literal the relationship between the character Nene and Pole and Pot and the real life Pole Pot is meant to be. It could all be metaphorical. Nene,
which would answer our fucking questions.
Nene could have had known someone in real life who she grew up with, but who has lost their way, and she wishes she could see that person that she knew and that loved one more time. And in the end, it says in exchange for a fully tin body, the woodman lost his heart and the ability to love. Like, so yeah, it's like a Wizard of Oz reference, but it's like talking about like the man losing his ability to love. So it could just be like a relationship thing. It's very unclear. One thing I will say is I loved the ED song. It's sung by Inori Minase. It's called Too Late. And the lyrics of the song kind of do a good job of explaining the whole premise of the episode. But in many ways, they come up short, too, because you're left really wondering. And this is the thing I don't like about abstract art and abstract anime, is that, like, if you just gave people a little bit more of a sense of what you were really trying to say, it always hits with more power than abstract art does to me. Like, abstract art is like, oh, yeah, here's this, like, weird jumble of things. You take from it what you will. I don't like that. I want the creator to have, like, a voice that is clear, that I want to know exactly what they're saying.
I get it.
So yeah. Oh man, what a fucking weird episode though. Like, that's why I'm watching this show, to just be like completely surprised by stuff like this. Even if it's like not perfect and it's not completely understandable, like it's such a weird thing to do, and that's why I like it.
Okay, I understand more why now you thought it was like dual personalities on one person.
Yeah.
But even so, I don't feel like the show hints at that at all, because it specifically separates the two.
Yeah.
Pot and Pole as two individuals.
Yeah, and he says like Pole calls him like his best friend, like early on when they're in that like class.
He introduces him as his best friend.
Yeah.
So it's, and everybody around them recognizes them as two individuals. So it's just...
Yeah, I feel like unless you view everything as a metaphor,
works, but then I see where the show didn't follow it quite. I don't know, but that's the end of my thoughts.
Yeah, me too. I literally don't know what else to say about that, because it's just like you kind of have to take from it what you think it is. Like,
yeah,
maybe grand essays will be written about it someday.
Would you like to talk about pink explosions for now?
Oh, fuck yeah, I would. So
Lots
Saturdays,
of pink explosions.
Finally, we've got Action Heroine Cheerfruits back after a week away. Episode 6 is called Explosion Angel Hatsuri-chan. So we start off with a little backstory for the pink-haired girl who has been so mysterious up until now. And it turns out her name is Hatsuri Momoi. And it seems that Misaki reminds her of a character named Lady Gozen from the Super Sentai series Nimpu Sentai Hurrikaneger, which is a real like Sentai series, like a Power Rangers thing. And if you can go look at the Power Rangers Wikia, there is like a page for Lady Gozen, and she shares some small similarities with like Misaki's backstory. So I thought that was kind of a fun nickname. And she's got like long black hair, of course, too. So the girls are brainstorming ways to improve their show so they can rise up in the idol group rankings. Something that's like straight out of like Love Live. And they decide they need to improve their special effects, and they should also maybe add a pink heroine, because historically pink heroines are very popular, which is kind of true. It turns out that Misaki already has Hatsuri in mind, because she's been sending, like Hatsuri's been sending Misaki like these giant letters of self-recommendation to her locker at school. She's got a lot of experience because she's been acting in the drama club since middle school. And apparently she has a hazardous materials engineering license, even though she's a little girl, because her family runs Momoi Construction, which has also like dealt with a lot of explosives and stuff, but like they've worked with Misaki's family for many years, basically. So that's why they know each other. Misaki worries that Hatsuri kind of always overdoes whatever she's doing, though, because she remembers back to a couple things. Like there was a bonfire that they were both at school or something. It wasn't burning so well, so Hatsuri threw like explosive powder on it, and it made it like explode.
I think overdoes understatement.
Yeah, she like there was like a high school girls festival sign that she like lit on fire to make it look better, but then it spread into the forest and started a huge forest fire.
Why does she have the resources to fucking get this shit?
Well, because her construction company that her family owns, they use these materials. I guess they would just be sitting around. That's not an
excuse. Why do they let her have this shit?
Because she's a perfect little angel.
And she somehow has a degree in like fucking explosives in elementary school. I call bullshit. immediately.
Well, there's even the time when they're on the tennis court and there's like a landslide, so there's like a bunch of dirt like on the court and they can't play. And she's like, "Don't worry, Misaki," or like Gozen Shama is what she calls like Misaki. And then she like hands her like a TNT plunger and says like, "Just push this," and it like blows up the whole landslide. It's ridiculous. So anyway, the girls decide to test Hatsuri with a 5-minute performance. So they say, you do whatever theme you want. So she decides to get her guys from the construction company to help out.
Which is very important.
Yes.
I feel like the show kind of glossed over.
Yeah.
It's important that her construction company guys have been helping her the entire time.
Okay, yeah, because
they're kind of gung-ho about the whole thing.
They love her, so yes, they want to make her happy and do whatever they can to make her happy. Because she's like the young princess who will eventually be the new president of the company. So like they man a crane and she uses it like with like wiring to like fly through the air. And she also, when she's performing, she speaks like a much older person, which I thought was funny. Explosives start going off all around her as she performs the scene from like Kami Daio's season 1 climax that all the girls recognize. And so the explosions keep getting like bigger and bigger, and it's definitely overkill. And when she finishes, the girls are like all covered in soot and dust and just like, what the hell was that?
Yeah, and like blonde drill hill girl is just like nothing but like a poofy afro.
Yeah, her hair got
like
totally messed
they
up.
literally blew her up and she flew across the screen at one point. It's insane. It's like way out of aspect for this show.
So the girls were like, you kind of failed because it went way too far. And then so she runs back to her construction worker guys and starts crying and saying that Lady Gozen hated it. And they have to hold her hands apart because she has a lighter in one hand and a stick of dynamite in the other. And she's just like ready to end it.
It's insane. I loved it.
Back at home, Hatsuri's father, who's like the owner of the company, tries to cheer her up, and offers to talk to Misaki's father to get her into the group because they know each other and he could probably pull strings. But Hatsuri doesn't want to get in that way. She wants to do it like through her own abilities. So the next day she goes back to the club and she asks to become an apprentice of the group so she can prove herself. And Hatsuri continues to freak out anytime Misaki is around. She'll ignore whatever she's doing and just focus all of her attention on her idol. Like, there's even one point where she's like using a circular saw to cut through some like 2x4s to build the set. And like Roko is on the other side and she keeps moving the circular saw and she turns because Misaki gets there. And she's like, "Oh, Misaki, everything's going okay." And she has her eyes closed, like, "Don't worry." And like the circular saw just keeps moving towards Roko and she's like, "Look in front of you, damn it." It's like, she just loses it when Misaki's around. So Hatsuri thinks she's done for because she just can't control herself around her like idol, and she keeps crying. And then she gets a bunch of encouraging text messages from the whole group of the Cheerfruits girls. So that gives her a little bit more motivation. So she decides to rework her whole performance plan, and she asks the group if she can be tested one more time. So she builds like an entire replica of their like Hina Nectar set that they perform on, and makes the explosions much smaller, much more manageable this time around. And for once, at the end, she gets like a standing applause from the whole group. And then the whole stage collapses because it turns out like she told all the construction guys she wanted to build everything on her own, and she didn't do a very good job. But it's okay because Misaki tells her, "You still passed." And so then we see her like first performance basically, and she calls herself like several names. She calls herself the Pink Impact, the Invincible Peach, Powerful Minimum, Nitro Pink. So Nitro Pink basically is her name. So she like performs, and like so the girls' performance is pretty much improved by her special effects. They all have like colored smoke like behind them as special effects that like matches their color costumes, and the group finally has 9 members all in all. And yeah, like so it looks like all of the introduction stuff for the show is now done. But yeah, it was a pretty weird episode to be honest. Yeah.
Well, I basically just thought that episode was absurd because that pink hair girl was insane.
Yeah, she
and
was
no
weird.
elementary schooler should have that much power over dynamite or explosives in general. Doesn't matter who you are.
I liked her crazy backstory. I just loved how her whole construction company supports her.
I think it was fun. And honestly, this is probably my favorite episode of Action Heroine Cheerfruits.
Oh, cool.
But it was just maybe out of place.
Maybe a little bit. I don't know.
And like, I actually, even though being like my favorite episode, I have to hold it against the series.
Yeah. I will say, like, I came into this episode dreading what this girl was going to be like, and I came away thinking she was fun and cute. So
you were expecting a Beatrice from Princess Principal.
Basically, I was expecting her to be like a huge like source of fan service and stupid stuff, and instead it was kind of funny. So,
oh yeah, they could have gone way bad.
Yep.
Which is why I think I enjoyed it, because I'm like, oh, they didn't fuck this up.
All right, so if we're done with that, now it's time to discuss mid-season cuts. So, in preparation for mid-season cuts, I caught up on a bunch of other shows.
I am so surprised you did this.
So, to start off, I did catch up.
You gave me some gray hairs, just me thinking about you catching on some of this stuff. So.
Yeah, because I know.
How well are you faring? Please, tell us, Bcom.
So I caught up with Recreators, Leo's favorite show from last season. This show, I would say, has started to be more fun now that it's gotten to in its final arc of like battles against Altair. But as of episode 18, it's moving like strangely fast, because what they're doing right now feels like it's the final battle, but they have 4 episodes to go. So that's kind of weird. Of course, there's a couple characters they have to bring back that they've already introduced, but like there was a pretty dumb onsen episode that was like a huge waste of time.
Really? How do you fit that in? Like, did everybody go on a vacation at once?
Yeah, like, so yeah, the whole world is ending and they all like go chill at the onsen. It's pretty dumb. It's not as fan servicey as I thought it might be, honestly. There's more fan service for the girls than for the guys, obviously, but
this show has not been about fan service at all, so I get that.
I will say my favorite things that came out of these last few episodes were the scenes between Blitz and his creator, the person who wrote his story, because he meets her, and remember, like, she had his daughter killed off, so he has huge issues with her, but their set of scenes together are actually some of the best.
His creator's female?
Yeah.
Ooh, cool.
And she's pretty like harsh about it. She's like, hey, I write whatever is most interesting. And like this, I didn't create that world for you. I created it for the readers. So it's a really good conversation. I think it's some of my favorite scenes from the entire series.
Did the show focus on how like the creators are creating it for the viewers rather than the main characters?
Yes, definitely. The biggest problem though is Sota. Like, he still has no reason to be in this show, like, at all. Like, there's this long protracted conversation that he has with like the crazy shark teeth girl, Magane or whatever. I
like her.
I could barely pay attention to it though. Like, and she starts helping him out with her powers at one point, which is like, okay, why are you doing this? Basically, Magane's whole thing is like, I like fun things now. She does whatever she thinks is fun. And apparently helping Sota is the fun thing now, but we don't know what that's going to lead to at this point. So I would say that the Moe girl who they introduced, who's like the dating sim girl who everybody is like uncomfortable around because they've all seen her naked and like having sex. She gets like a cool transformation into like a kung fu martial artist, like, which is kind of ridiculous, but still funny. And I like how they explore how the fans are accepting these weird things that are happening to their favorite characters. But still, this show has a lot of issues. Like, it still looks really good, but it's still so bogged down in exposition all the time. I don't know. I still don't think it's like maybe worth reviewing.
Is Sota relevant? Any?
He is relevant, but not. We don't understand how he's going to be relevant yet.
Okay, say he dies next scene. How hard does that impact this world?
It doesn't at all.
Oh God, see?
It really doesn't. They just go on without him.
They would just be like, oh no, he's dead. I'm sad. I cried. I went to his funeral. Move on.
So another show I've caught up with was Welcome to the Ballroom, which we had issues with, like the draft necks, and let me tell you, there continue to be draft necks.
Oh God, it's horror stories, dude. Jesus Christ.
So one of the things I liked a lot about this show is that it's the same character designer as Haikyuu. So the girl in the show, Shizuku, reminded me a lot of the dark-haired and bespectacled volleyball coach in Haikyuu. And in the second season of Haikyuu, a cute blonde girl gets introduced as a second coach. And wouldn't you know it, in this show, a cute blonde dancer gets introduced and is paired up with Tatara. And she looks a lot like Yachi from Haikyuu as well. So now we have both characters from Haikyuu in this show, basically, in my opinion. And it's kind of fun. My main issue with the show at this point is that it makes it out so that, like, the male leads are like the stars of the show, and, like, no pun intended, the girls really only follow their lead on and off the dance floor. Like, Shizuku has a bit more attitude, and, like, her main goals seem to be to get back at her original sort of selfish partner who injured himself, and maybe to improve her own dancing by broadening her horizons with a new partner. But some of this just seems to be for the benefit of Tatara as well, who she continues to be impressed by. He keeps improving, and, like, she's like, wow, he's so good. He's getting so much better. Like, obviously they're going to end up as a couple. But the problem with that is I really like Tatara and Mako as a dancing couple. Mako is the younger sister of this guy who is now paired up with Shizuku, who is, like, a really brash, like, delinquent sort of guy. And the little sister is very cute and little sister-ish, but she really wants to, like, improve so she can prove to her brother that, like, she's a better partner and that he'll take her back, basically. But yeah, I think by far the biggest problem with the show is that all of the guys are just assholes. Like, the blonde teacher guy is an asshole. The new brother dude is an asshole. Hyodo is kind of an asshole in his own way. And they're all kind of assholes to the girls. And it's just like, whatever. I don't really like this. It's like, I don't know. Yeah, I just don't like the characters that much. I like the girls, but the main focus is not on them. So anyway, and there's just not that much to talk about with that show from week to week, to be honest. So I've also caught up with My Hero Academia, which sucks.
Me too.
It's fucking terrible.
Not the anime, just the manga.
It's not that bad, but it really kind of is bad. Like, the internship arc put all of the girls in positions where their only job in the internship is to be either a fashion model or fawn over the guy who they're interning with. Like,
yeah, that's a manga.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah, Ochiko spends all of her scenes, like, fawning over, like, her hero guy, and then, like, what's her name? The creation girl, Yozuru, whatever. I can't remember her name is.
It's a long Y word.
Yeah.
But yeah, go on.
Shoot, I usually have it on the tip of my tongue. But anyway, yeah, she's like a fashion model. To be fair, Bakugo gets paired up with this guy who has, like, he's called the Jeanist, who wears, like, jeans up to his face. There's, like, literally a belt around his nose.
Yeah, he's very powerful. He's, like, in the top 3.
Oh, really? Yeah. So, But he makes Bakugo wear, like, this, like, fabulous hairstyle, which is kind of hilarious. But yeah, there was, like, this arc where Ito was trying to get back for, like, revenge for his brother who was injured. And it was just kind of boring. And then, like, I don't know, like, Deku gets trained by a guy who's basically Yoda. Like, he keeps, like, jumping around all over the walls. His name is Jet, or, like, I don't know if that's actually his name, but that's his quirk, is Jet. And yeah, that whole part was like, okay, yeah, Deku's getting powered up. Like, okay, I don't care. It's just moving very slowly. I care about all the other internships, and one of the best episodes that I watched recently was the Suyu episode, the Frog Girl. Her internship was really interesting and fun, and they did, like, a whole episode about it. So
actually, I think they skipped it in the manga.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like, not skipped it, obviously, but like, it wasn't in the manga. I don't remember it at all. Mm-hmm. So when anime people started talking about it, I was like, oh, they gave her her own episode, because I remember her being very popular once the anime started. So
yeah, for sure. And the one other thing that I've caught up on, not completely, but is the show Dive, which surprisingly got a lot better after the first weird episode and the first couple episodes.
Especially with the animation?
Yeah, the animation is way more solid now too. Like, it doesn't look jarring and bad like it did in the first episode.
Well, why the heck did they fuck up the first episode?
I don't know. I'm telling you, that's a huge mistake to make at the beginning of an anime. As far as I've watched, it hasn't gone any further in explaining what the deal is with like the main character and his girlfriend that he doesn't want to be with. But they have introduced like a new teammate and a bunch of new rivals. And they've focused a lot more on like what training is for diving and like how you get better at diving and stuff. And so it's a perfectly serviceable like sports show at this point, I would say. But even after catching up with all those, I'm not sure if I want to replace anything we're watching right now with one of those shows. What do you think?
If you let me replace one of our shows with the shorts, then maybe I would replace one.
So which show would you replace though, out of all these shows?
If I would, it would be Convenience Store Boyfriends, not because it's a bad show, but because I think Suradura Children is better.
Suradura Children is definitely a better show. I would not be against that, because the thing is with Suradura, it's a 12.5-minute show. So it's not like a completely short, it's not like a 3-minute thing. So there's definitely things to talk about every time.
Yeah, because we can constantly keep talking about each person's relationships, each of the couples and whatnot. But
yeah. Like, the only other thing I would think about dropping is like Centaur Girls because of the Loli fan service. But
man, that last episode, like, it was kind of like it would do things here and there. I was like, maybe this would definitely make me want to drop it, or possibly. But man, that last one was just horribly bad.
Yeah, but there have been so many like interesting things in the show.
Right.
Yeah.
The rest of it has been so great. You're just like, Urgh.
So I don't know. Do you want to replace Convenience Store with Suraduri? I'm down for that. I would allow it. It's up to you.
Yes, because it's the better show.
Okay. I think it's more fun to talk about.
It's the better show. I'm set on this. So I still will keep watching Convenience Store Boyfriends, but the better show is Suradura Children, even if it's a short. So.
I agree. I think I'll finish out watching the Convenience Store Boyfriends just to see where it goes, for sure.
Right.
All right. So yeah, we actually cut a show. I'm so proud of us.
How about you? Do you need to replace Centaur's Life or possibly Action Heroine Cheer Fruits?
I still think Action Heroine Cheer Fruits it's kind of charming. Like, so I don't want to necessarily replace that. Like,
it is.
I would say that I think... I would say that I think Recreators and Welcome to the Ballroom are both slightly better shows than Centaur's Life. But I don't necessarily want to talk about either of those shows week to week, just because Recreators like has done enough to piss us off already. And Welcome to the Ballroom...
I haven't seen anything of it, but I have no interest.
And then, yeah, Welcome to the Ballroom is okay, but it's not great, and there's just not much to talk about because it's a long, protracted shonen show. And it's like, you've seen the show before, it's just a different sport.
You would be talking about people talking about dancing, so...
Oh, one of the things I'll say about Welcome to the Ballroom, one of my main, like, early complaints was that, like, the choreography wasn't that great, but they started doing some Latin dancing, and when they animate and choreograph the Latin dancing parts, they look really good. So whoever's working on that is doing a great job. But the rest of the dancing is just like, I don't really get it. So
okay.
But yeah, so let's replace Convenience Store with Suraduri Children, and I guess that would be it for this week, unless you got anything else to say.
No, that would be it. But everybody, thanks for listening. Remember to like, follow, and subscribe to us on YouTube to get updates on new podcasts or videos. And follow us on Twitter and Nerdom and Other for updates as well. See everybody next week.
Peace.